Part of it is that we have to learn how to read the Fathers. And in reading the Fathers, I mean, it's almost like, first off, we read too much. You can get almost anything online, and we're not ready to read it. And I mean, I've read somebody's dissertation on Chrysostom, and I think you completely get him wrong. I mean, part of it is like there's early Chrysostom and late Chrysostom. Or early Chrysostom can be mean and highly moralistic, and he's an Antiochian monk. He's a desert dude, and they bring him in because he's such a good preacher. And he gets kicked out of Constantinople because he's a good preacher, but he just can't seem to quit offending the empress. And I mean, it's like, dude, I've been a preacher, and I do understand sometimes you got to, keep your, but there's things when you read his letters to the deaconess Olympia when he's in exile. And this is the letters of Chrysostom's suffering. And it's interesting, it's a woman he writes and who comforts him and is his friend. Father Tom Hopko famously said he didn't know a single male saint in the church who did not have an important role of a woman in his life. It's fascinating. So so you read a father and you run across something that makes you go, wonder about that. But then you'll find other fathers, that you have to read who'll treat it a different way. And there's things that are dogma and that are settled, and then there's things that are just opinion. And there's more opinion in the fathers than there is dogma. And we have people, and a lot of this comes too in people coming towards orthodoxy who want, and I've had some people occasionally that I've gotten attacked. I mean, when I first started St. Anne, I told our congregation who was kind of wanting me to do this, do that, and require this and require that, and I told them, I'm taking St. Anne down the middle of the OCA in obedience to my bishop, not according to what your cousin in Greece, his elder, said to him about this, that, or the other, or the book you read last week, or whatever. None of that matters to me. It's interesting, but that's not how we live. And so we do that, and so the same is true with the fathers, is in reading them. I tell people, it was like we were in Chattanooga for a conference, diocesan assembly, a few years back. And there was a young man I won't mention, but who's very prominent in the Orthodox internet, who was arguing with Vladika Alexander, one of the greatest living scholars on St. Dionysius. He wrote the book under the leadership of Abbot Emilianus, who will be Saint Emilianus, of when he was living at Simonopatra on Mount Athos. That's the pedigree. And the young man is arguing with Vladika Alexander that Dionysius is actually a first century companion of St. Paul. There's not a reputable scholar of the best use of that word in the world who would say that. Dionysius is possibly Syrian or Greco-Syrian, but certainly 5th century. He, for instance, invents the word hierarchy in Greek. He invents it. It doesn't occur anywhere else in writings until he uses it, and uses it prominently. Within a very few years of his writing, it's occurring everywhere. His writing is spread. In other words, these are like little historical bits of evidence that point to the fact this is not a 1st century writer, this is a 5th century writer. Why is he using the name Dionysius? Well, we can go into that. There's reasons, and Vladika Alexander's got great lecture on why he uses the pseudonym of Dionysius the Areopagite, partly because he's doing what that Dionysius would have been doing. Greek philosopher who is fixing Greek philosophy to be constant. But here's someone, no training, no college, no whatever like that, arguing with a great archbishop, scholar of the Orthodox Church, over a point he shouldn't even have an opinion about, and yet does this. I mean, this is a problem. And it's the same thing, and we've got tons of this kind of stuff out there on the internet. People saying, the fathers say. Well, they've never even read the fathers. They haven't read them in Greek. If you don't read them in Greek, Syriac, or whatever else, believe me, it's like reading the New Testament without reading in the original languages. And, I mean, I'm scandalized that when I was in seminary, I was the only one in my class to take Hebrew. The only one. I had to go to a Methodist seminary across the street from mine to go to a Hebrew class. And I'm thinking, don't you want to read the Old Testament? You know, I majored in Greek in college, so I mean, I didn't do much more of that. But we have to have right regard. Orthodoxy is not fundamentalism. I hate that word. But orthodoxy is not idiotic. It has a great scholarly tradition and always has. Who do you think the fathers are? They're not all desert dudes. And even when they are desert dudes, like, say, St. John of Damascus, he's sitting in a cave in the Kedron Valley writing these wonderful books. But he had been secretary to the Sultan in Damascus before he left to do that. He's one of the most educated men in the ancient world. You know, and so this is part of what I was saying. But yeah, there's, you know, I like Chrysostom when I like him, and I don't like him when I don't like him. I'll close this with a little quick story. I'm sitting talking with Vladika Dmitri, whom I also believe will be canonized in 50 years, but it takes time. But anyway, I'm talking to Vladika one day about Chrysostom, and the charge that Chrysostom was anti-Semitic for many things he said about the Jews. And I'm defending Chrysostom. We're sitting and talking. We were in Kentucky, sitting on the back of a pickup truck. What a great scene. Talking to Vladika Dmitri. And I'm, defending, like a good Orthodox priest, I'm defending Chrysostom and saying, well, that's really anachronistic. He's saying things, it's a different culture, different times. I don't think he's anti-Semitic. And Vladika Dmitri said, oh, no, I think he was anti-Semitic. And I looked at him and I thought, well, he was an archbishop, you're an archbishop. You can do that. And it was like just a wake-up call. That doesn't mean we don't love him, doesn't mean he's not a saint, but saints aren't people without flaws. And the writings of the saints are not a secondary canon. The Scripture's canon. The writings of the saints can be all over the place. And so, and then that frightens people because they come to Orthodoxy because they want answers, they want authority, they want all of that. And it's like, you need to come to this because you want a family. And become part of the 2,000-year family argument that Orthodoxy is. We know what we believe and we know what we teach. It's there in the canons, it's there in the councils, and there is a canon within the canon. There's some fathers are more important than others. There's reasons why we talk about the Cappadocians. And, the Seventh Council called St. Gregory of Nyssa the father of fathers. So is he important to read? Yes. There's some to read. And then, first off, how many volumes of Chrysostom? You got that 38-volume set of the church fathers that you get out there. There's like this many volumes of Chrysostom. Nobody should ever write that much. They wrote down everything the guy said. And I'm just thinking, dude, it's just like, nobody needs that much. So anyhow, is that a confusing answer? Yes. Oh, okay, yeah.